So you may be thinking, how does a show go from chill moments like this,
hit it,
to absolutely bonkers stuff like this? I guess that's what happens when modern hip-hop meets Edo-era Japanese samurai. That's right, folks, today we'll be recapping Samurai Champloo, a show which is this awesome cocktail of comedic, wacky, musical, and over-the-top amazing adventures. The series began airing on television from May 2004 till March 2005, and its story is centered around three characters: Mugen, Jin, and Fu. Mugen is a brash outlaw who combines fighting and breakdancing. Jin is a stoic samurai whose brutal fight with his old master still haunts him, and Fu is a 15-year-old determined waitress on a chaotic quest to find the samurai who smells of sunflowers. Sword fights, rap bars, and unexpected friendships collide in this stylish, genre-bending adventure. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. The first episode is called Tempestuous Temperament, and it opens with a not-so-cordial disclaimer reminding the audience that this is fiction, and the producers really don't care for your feelings about historical accuracy. So yeah, they basically tell you to just shut up and enjoy the show from the get-go. Really sets the vibe, to be honest. Anyway, the episode kicks off with our two sword-singing leads, Mugen and Jin, about to be executed. That's right, their heads are on the chopping block. But before you can even ask what the hell is going on, the episode hits rewind and takes us back 24 hours to where all the chaos begins. A little tea house with way too many sleazy dudes and not enough common decency.
Isn't there anything fun to do around here?
Meet Fu, our feisty waitress heroine who simply wants to earn a living without too much attention. But when one particularly greasy dude starts picking on an old man for just briefly looking at him, she tries stepping in and immediately gets dragged back to the room by her coworkers. Why? Well, turns out the jerk is a governor's son, and that basically makes him untouchable. Meanwhile, outside the tea house, a desperate man is begging the governor to let him keep a job. The governor says no and orders his bodyguards to handle it. Jin, our quiet and deadly ronin, which just means a wandering samurai, sees this whole mess from the crowd and takes matters into his own hands.
Is that honorable?
of course it is.
Even if that lord is an unimportant piece of...
Say what?
He absolutely wrecks the guards before walking away like nothing happened.
Somebody stop that man!
But not before picking up some of the workers' money off the ground, because nothing is done for free in this world. Back inside the tea shop, Fu meets our wildcard samurai, Mugen. He just wants water to drink, but she tells him to either order something on the menu or just leave. In response, he makes her a deal that she'll definitely refuse. He'll beat up the tea house thugs in exchange for 50 dumplings. Before she can finish negotiating with him, Fu trips and spills tea on the governor's son, and after that, he and his goons go full psycho, pinning her down and threatening to slice up her fingers.
I wanted to give the new blade a test cut anyway, and she'll do just fine.
Fu remembers that offer, which, given the circumstances, she can no longer refuse, and yells 100 dumplings. Now, Mugen is suddenly very motivated. He confronts the bodyguards harassing Fu, cutting off limbs and shredding the samurai in the tea house like he's auditioning for a Tarantino film. The governor's son tries pulling rank, but Mugen starts breaking his fingers and orders someone to call more bodyguards. That's when we meet Jin again. Mugen sees him and assumes he's just another bodyguard and charges at him. And just like that, we get ourselves a samurai showdown inside a burning tea house. Yeah, it's burning because some guy named Ryujiro Sasaki committed arson and then bounced like this was a normal Tuesday for him.
Burn it all! Burn it to the ground!
Ryujiro is the one who got his hand chopped off, and this is just the beginning of his payback arc. Still, Mugen and Jin keep fighting in the burning tea shop because priorities. We then cut to later. Both Mugen and Jin awaken, tied up and bruised in what is definitely the governor's murder basement. Apparently, the two fighters were knocked out mid-duel, and turns out the governor's son didn't survive the Great Tea House Inferno, so now it's revenge o'clock. Even though the real culprit in the situation was Ryujiro, a bodyguard who ends up killing the one person he was meant to protect. Meanwhile, Fu, whose tea house career is now in literal ashes, decides she's not done with these two yet. Armed with her trusty squirrel sidekick Momo, she knocks out a guard and sneaks into the prison. She finds Mugen and Jin and makes a proposal. She'll bust them out if they help her find a mysterious samurai who smells like sunflowers. And no, she doesn't explain further.
If you promise you'll do me just one little favor, I'll help you escape. Do we have a deal?
You serious?
After that, Fu gets caught mid-breakout and has to flee. And the next day, there's talk of a public execution. We then loop back to the opening scene where our boys are about to be turned into sushi rolls. However, they break free just in time, grab their swords, and go full resistance. Jin kills the governor while Fu causes a big distraction by showing up on the roof with fireworks disguised as explosives. The place lights up like the 4th of July, and the guards scatter like ants at a picnic. In all the chaos, our trio finally links up. Mugen and Jin are ready to pick up their fight where they left off, but Fu initiates a coin flip to decide their fate. It lands on tails, which means their fight is postponed until she finds her sunflower samurai.
Hey, look! I won! Ah!
The episode then ends with their dramatic escape from the pursuing guards, kicking off what promises to be the weirdest, bloodiest, and most hip-hop-infused road trip of all time. The next episode is called Red Eye Reprisal, and it opens in a jail where Ryujiro, the same guy who burned down the tea house back in episode 1, is up to no good again. This time, he frees a fearsome prisoner named Oni Wakamaru, promising him revenge on the people who mocked him for his monstrous appearance, as long as he helps take out Mugen and Jin, the classic quid pro quo. Meanwhile, on more relatable news, Mugen, Jin, and Fu are now broke. Yep, that's what happens when you don't have a stable job. While Mugen and Jin are ready to fight about who's lying about their net worth, Fu reminds them of their actual goal, finding the samurai who smells of sunflowers.
Who is this samurai who smells of sunflowers?
Well,
What the hell is a sunflower anyway?
Wait a minute.
You don't know?
It's a flower.
So what do they smell like?
Hungry and annoyed, they go grab some yakimanju, which just means sweet grilled dumplings. Just as they start arguing over who gets how many, a bird swoops in and steals them. Oh boy, what are the odds of literally getting robbed by nature while being dirt poor broke? After the bird heist, Jin overhears a group talking about an ogre who's been killing people. One man tries to pressure an elderly samurai nearby into going after it, but the elderly guy refuses. Mugen, never one to turn down a potential job opening, jumps in and offers to kill the ogre himself, impressing the crowd with some skewer sword flair. So, they buy him more dumplings in thanks. Fu, however, is not impressed and gets irritated that Mugen's taking on random side quests instead of helping her.
You think you're some kind of legendary hero?
She's soon offered a drink by the crowd, and she passes out. After that, a nearby innkeeper warns them about how late it is and offers the trio a place to stay for the night, in a free shack near a hot spring. Yeah, this is all sounding too good to be true. They all then leave for the shack with Fu still unconscious. Along the way, Mugen meets a barefoot, mysterious, beautiful woman named Hotaru, who seems oddly interested in him, and he's hooked. Back in town, it turns out the innkeeper was working with Ryujiro. After leading the group into a trap, he gets strangled by Oni Wakamaru, because he knows too much. At the shack, Mugen helps Hotaru with her sandals, flirts, and then heads back to her house for a steamy visit. Things get intimate, until Hotaru suddenly kisses him and slips something into his mouth. Yeah, it's poison. Turns out she was hired to drug him with something called a one-night mushroom, a pain-inducing drug, and only Ryujiro has the antidote. Back at the shack, Fu wakes up and is immediately knocked out again by Ryujiro. Jin, meanwhile, takes a soak in the hot spring where he runs into an elderly samurai who happens to be one of the people discussing the so-called ogre that's been killing people. The samurai casually reveals that he's actually a hired assassin. He challenges Jin to a duel and they begin an intense sword fight. Fu, now locked in a cell guarded by Oni Wakamaru, learns more about him. Oni Wakamaru opens up about his tragic past, how he was mocked for his looks, abandoned, and driven to violence from the trauma. Oddly enough, he and Fu bond a little. She treats him kindly, which is something he's clearly not used to.
You're not scary, but you do seem to have an awfully sad look in your eye.
Yeah, I already love her. Meanwhile, Mugen, now weakened from the poison, stumbles his way to Ryujiro's hideout. He's immediately attacked by Oni Wakamaru while Ryujiro taunts and holds Fu hostage. Mugen tries to fight, but he's still weak. He slashes off Oni Wakamaru's hood as Ryujiro takes over and tries to drown Mugen for fun, all because he's mad about the tea shop incident. But Fu manages to fight back and knock down Ryujiro. Still, Ryujiro recovers, then assaults and threatens Fu with his sword, going on and on about how he enjoys spreading pain. Before he can carry out this threat of killing Fu, however, Oni Wakamaru steps in and strangles Ryujiro to death. Mugen, still feeling dazed and confused, tries to attack the last standing opponent. Oni Wakamaru also prepares to fight back, but Fu pleads with him and Mugen to stop. Oni Wakamaru listens and drops his weapon, while Mugen, ignoring Fu's plea, pierces Oni Wakamaru's chest.
Don't do it!
Damn it, Mugen. Back with Jin, he and the assassin are still locked in battle when they come across Ryujiro's dead body. The assassin realizes the job is over, given that his client is now dead, and he then walks away, telling Jin they'll meet again. As the episode ends, Fu approaches the dying Oni Wakamaru and asks why he saved her from Ryujiro. He tells her it's because she was the only person who wasn't afraid of his appearance, and for that sole reason, he doesn't feel alone anymore. Damn. As a firefly lands on his finger, he smiles one last time and dies peacefully. Can't help but say it, Oniwa Kamaru deserved better. The next episode, Hellhounds for Hire, kicks off with Mugen and Jin doing what they do best, trying to kill each other over absolutely nothing. But before anyone can get stabbed, their stomachs clock out and they both faint from hunger. Fu, ever the responsible babysitter to these two feral cats, starts lamenting about their constant fighting. She keeps yapping and whining about it until eventually they reach a fork in the road. Then Mugen slyly calls Jin over like he's going to share a secret. Suddenly, they just ditch Fu and run opposite ways, like teens escaping a nagging parent.
Sayonara, sweetheart.
Hey, wait!
After successfully ditching Fu, Mugen stumbles into a restaurant like a starving raccoon and starts stealing food right off the table, which is insane because that table belongs to the Nagatomi Yakuza, a notorious gang. But Mugen doesn't care. He stabs a guy's hand with a skewer and starts fighting. When their boss, Rikie Nagatomi, walks in, even he recognizes Mugen's strength and courage. Rikie then treats Mugen to some crabs while monologuing about taking over the world with power and some gambling business and blah blah blah. He even invites Mugen to join his Yakuza squad, but Mugen just calls him a fraud and refuses, politely, with insults.
Take over the country, my ass. You're even phonier than your dice.
While that's happening, we meet Osuzu, a tutor teaching a kid named Sasuke. At the door, Osuzu's father is having an argument with Nagatomi gang members because he owes them money. As he's unable to pay up, the gangsters end up taking Osuzu with an IOU document as a debt reminder. Seeing what's happened, Sasuke runs to go find help. Jin, meanwhile, ends up at the restaurant where Mugen was earlier, and he can see that the owner is clearly suffering from PTSD after Mugen's earlier visit. Jin is looking for a job and offers his services as a swordsman. He hears from the restaurant owner about the rival Yakuza, the Kawaras, who used to be the cool dudes on the block until the Nagatomi muscled their way in. Speak of the devil, the Nagatomi gang does show up again. Shortly after their arrival, Sasuke confronts them, demanding the IOU back from the gang. Jin steps in, offering to be hired as a bodyguard for the young boy, and then proceeds to slice the clothes off the gang members just to demonstrate his amazing skill. And yeah, he also gets the IOU for the boy. After the thugs run away, Sasuke begs Jin to help save his tutor Osuzu. But Jin gives him a reality check, calling out his recklessness in confronting danger and tells him to chill out. As for our female lead, Fu gets duped by a fortune teller who says something cryptic about vases. Then, in true sitcom timing, Fu bumps into a guy and breaks his vase. He then demands 100 Rio, roughly $1 billion in broke woman's currency, and 2 creeps offer to help her with her situation. By help, these creeps mean stuffing her into a sack and selling her to a brothel. So now she's in debt bondage. Fan-freaking-tastic. She's not alone though. She also gets to bond with Osuzu, who's now her brothel mate. Damn, things are getting dark now. Sasuke and Jin try to plan a rescue, but security at the brothel is tight. So what do? Naturally, they dress up. Jin as a woman with a shamisen, Sasuke as a grandpa, and they sneak in pretending to be performers. The things we do for the people we care about. So anyway, Jin strums a few horrendous notes on the shamisen before ripping off his wig and revealing his true identity. Mugen hears as the bodyguard causing trouble and excitedly rushes in, only to see Jin and immediately go, "Ugh, you again?" They both end up in front of Fu, who is tied up, beyond done, and looks like she's contemplating murdering the 2 men herself. And just when you think they've finally learned to cooperate, Mugen lunges at Jin again, and that's where the episode ends.
What about the promise you made not to kill each other?
Guess no matter how hard we try.
The next episode is titled Hellhounds for Hire Part 2. As Mugen and Jin are trying to slice each other into sashimi, Sasuke manages to sneak in and find Osuzu. He begs her to escape with him, but Osuzu is already emotionally checked out. She's buried under family debt and decides this is her sad reality now. As the samurais are still in the middle of their duel, Rikie Nagatomi walks in with his army of goons. They surround Jin, clearly planning something shady. Mugen gets mad because if anyone is going to kill Jin, it's gonna be him. So he starts throwing punches at the goons like it's a Yakuza buffet and he's serving knuckle sandwiches. Jin, being the clever strategist, triggers a bomb hid inside a musical banjo. Yeah, seriously. The explosion causes enough confusion for him and Sasuke to make a run for it. Mugen tries to follow but loses their trail. Meanwhile, Fu questions Osuzu's choice to stay behind. Osuzu explains she's simply trying to pay off her father's debts. He's her only family after all. Osuzu then asks Fu if she has a family, to which Fu replies with a blank stare. Pretty sure, deep down, she's starting to think of Jin and Mugen as her makeshift family, but saying that out loud would be too embarrassing now, wouldn't it? Elsewhere, Mugen marches straight to Rikie, demanding answers about why his men ambushed Jin. Rikie changes the subject and offers Mugen a leadership role in his gang. but all Mugen hears is be a boring boss and instantly rejects it. Mugen doesn't like being ruled and definitely doesn't want to rule others. As he walks away, Rikie vows revenge, but Mugen throws a casual insult over his shoulder and challenges Rikie to send an assassin after him.
You think you can treat me like garbage and just walk away?
If you send someone after me, do me a favor. Send the toughest mofo you can find.
Outside, Mugen runs into Ishimatsu, Rikie's right-hand man. Ishimatsu drops some unexpected wisdom, telling Mugen that sometimes a man has to go along with others even if he disagrees. He also reveals that he used to be with the Kawara Yakuza, but switched sides for his own personal conviction. Mugen shrugs it off as a load of horse manure and tells Ishimatsu to live however the hell he wants. He's not here for life lessons. Back at the brothel, a Nagatomi thug tries to cheer up Osuzu in the creepiest way possible. Sasuke sees this and snaps. He kills the guy on the spot, which lands him in even deeper trouble. Not only did he snatch back the IOU from the Yakuza, but now he's killed one of their members. So naturally, the gang captures him and takes him hostage. To resolve this mess the Yakuza way, Rikie invites Haitaro Kawara, Sasuke's dad and rival gameboss, for a high-stakes gamble. The deal is bizarre and cruel. If Rikie wins a dice game, Sasuke dies, but Haitaro gets to keep all his territory. If Haitaro wins, Sasuke lives, but the Nagatomi gang gets to keep their turf. Yeah, it's a lose-lose situation, but Haitaro accepts the deal anyway. While all this drama unfolds, Mugen's wandering the train, remembering how Fu once made him and Jin promise to not kill each other until they found the samurai who smells like sunflowers. He also realizes Rikie hasn't sent anyone to kill him and feels insulted. Imagine being upset that nobody wants to kill you. Damn. So he decides that if Rikie won't kill him, he'll take out Rikie himself. Fu, meanwhile, is plotting her own escape. Her idea? Make an ugly face to scare off customers.
Wow, what a perfect face!
Huh?
You're just what I was looking for!
It doesn't work, but thankfully Momo, her trusty flying squirrel, bites one of them. And Fu smashes a vase on the guy's head and bolts towards the gambling house. At the gambling house, things are already sketchy. Rikie has conveniently removed Haitaro's dice roller, essentially ensuring that Haitaro wins so that he can take over his territory. Just when it looks like all is lost, Fu bursts in and offers to roll. The dice land in Rikie's favor. Haitaro, a man of his word, commits seppuku, which just means a ritual suicide, on the spot. Sasuke is crushed. Rikie smugly announces that he's going to take over anyway, no matter the outcome, shocking Ishimatsu, who starts to see just how far Rikie has fallen from Yakuza honor. That's when Mugen crashes the party. Rikie, now using the grieving lad as a hostage, asks Mugen if he doesn't care about the hostage he's holding, but Mugen is like, nah, not really.
Don't you care if this kid lives or dies?
Nah, can't really say I do.
Jin starts swinging as well, and together they tear through the Nagatomi thugs. Rikie, panicking, tells Ishimatsu to get him out of there, but Ishimatsu, sick of all the sketchiness and dishonor, finally snaps and kills Rikie himself. A rare moment of justice from a man torn between loyalty and conscience. With Rikie gone, Sasuke becomes the new leader of the Kawara gang. He offers Ishimatsu a place by his side, but Ishimatsu refuses, saying he needs to atone for his past and find redemption on his own terms. Before leaving, Ishimatsu meets with Mugen for one final duel. It's intense and full of old grudges. In the end, Mugen defeats and kills him. Well, we don't know if he's dead, but there was a lot of blood coming from his mouth, so yeah. After that, Jin, Fu, and Mugen move on, leaving Osuzu and Sasuke behind. Sasuke calls out to them, hoping their paths will cross again someday. And that's it for this episode. Episode 5 is called Artistic Anarchy. And unlike the other episodes, this one has a narrator who actually plays a role in the story. It's kinda weird, but don't worry, it makes total sense. So we continue with our main characters still on their journey, still searching for the samurai who smells like sunflowers. But first, they need a ferry ride, and there's just one tiny problem. None of them have a single coin to their name. While trying to figure out what to do, Fu wanders into a restaurant and sits down with a very friendly, very artsy stranger. He is charming and a little mysterious, and he offers to buy her lunch. Mugen and Jin don't waste time either. They add their orders to the same tab and stroll out like it's no big deal. Seeing that, Fu screams at them to work their asses off and find money for the ferry trip instead of relying on freebies from a stranger. Meanwhile, the artist introduces himself as Hishiwaka Marunobu. And he isn't just any artist. He is a famous ukiyo-e painter, the kind who draws elegant pictures of people and nature. He admires Fu's face and tells her that she'll be perfect as his next model. Nearby, just a few seats away, a sneaky investigator named Manzu the Saw is watching carefully. He is our narrator who is trying to solve a case about missing girls in the area, and he's convinced that something fishy might be going on with these ukiyo-e artists. Out in town, Mugen does exactly what Mugen does best: picks fights. He runs into some street punks, beats them up using only his feet, and then shakes them down for cash. Yeah, our MZ is an actual bully. Well, not like the victims in this case are any better, as you'll soon find out. Back with Fu and Hishiwaka, he shows her his art and says that everyday girls like her will become the new standard in paintings. Fu sees that one of his works has sunflowers, which is surely a big deal for her. Hishiwaka wants her to model for him, and even though she hesitates, the idea of earning some money is extremely tempting right now. Elsewhere, instead of looking for a job, Jin stands by the sea, watching the harbor. An old man playing shogi, think of it as a Japanese version of chess, invites Jin to play because he's bored of playing all by himself. The deal? If Jin wins, he'll get a bag of money, but if he loses, he'll become the old man's servant. Jin needs the money anyway, so he accepts the deal. Back in town, one of the punks Mugen had beaten earlier, the one with the green hair, runs to tell a scary woman, his Yakuza boss, what just happened. At first, she's in disbelief that anyone could beat up a Yakuza member like that. But then she gives him some money and tells him to handle it if he sees Mugen again. As it turns out, Mugen does spot the green-haired punk again, chasing him through the streets, and ends up bumping into Fu and Hishiwaka, who are on their way to the art studio. Mugen ends up losing sight of the punk and moves on. Later that night, Hishiwaka tries painting Fu, but he doesn't like the end result. He awkwardly asks her to show a little more skin there, not because he's a pervert, he insists, but it might help the art.
What we're doing here is all for the sake of art.
Fu reluctantly agrees, sure, maybe just a little bit of skin. Outside, our narrator Manzu is spying again and almost gets caught. Suddenly, some Yakuza punks storm the studio and kidnap Fu, stuffing her into a barrel. Yeah, it's as bad as you think. This was all a ploy, using the beauty of art to cover up the atrocity that is human trafficking. Now that the deed has been done, Hishiwaka starts regretting the whole plot and wants to make amends. On the road, he runs into the Yakuza boss lady who runs the trafficking business. She tries to flirt with him, but he is completely creeped out and has to escape. He finds the warehouse where Fu is being held hostage and gets her out of the barrel. Fu is justifiably furious. Hishiwaka confesses that he had secretly been involved in human trafficking because painting didn't pay the bills. Unbelievable. He does feel terrible, but not long after, the Yakuza boss and her goons catch them together at the warehouse. See, this is why you don't talk about your problems while in enemy territory. The next morning, Jin is still playing his never-ending shogi game. At this point, I don't know if he's fighting for the money or if he's fighting to retain his freedom. Mugen, meanwhile, finds out Fu has been taken, just as the Yakuza dumped a beat-up Hishiwaka into his art studio. He tells Mugen everything. The paintings were being used as catalogs to sell girls to European ships docked illegally, and Fu is going to be shipped off if they don't act fast. Mugen rushes to the docks and fights the Yakuza punks again, saving Fu just in time. The green-haired bum tries to kidnap her a second time, but Mugen runs after him and knocks him out, right next to Jin, who just finally won the shogi match. How convenient. In the meantime, Manzu arrives with the police and arrests the old man for human trafficking. The old man laughs and goes along quietly, tossing Jin the bag of money he had promised. So wait, they're saying the old man was the kingpin all along? Kinda random, but okay. As the crew hangs around, relaxing and wondering how their day had turned into such a wild mess, Hishiwaka, while riding on a barrel in a small boat, blurts out his love for Fu and shows her his final painting. It is, well, a little too detailed and not PG-13. He also declares his intention to escape to Holland and become famous, or else he's never coming back to Japan. And the episode then ends with the narrator revealing a curious twist, that Hishiwaka was caught en route to Holland and deported, while the painting of Fu somehow made its way to Europe and inspired none other than Vincent van Gogh's famous Sunflower series.
This incident is just one more page that's missing from the history books.
And that's how Fu nearly became international art history, through kidnapping, human trafficking, and X-rated art. Jeez. The following episode is called Stranger Searching. Mugen, Jin, and Fu arrive in a lively part of Edo called Vitonbashi. They're minding their own business when a parade of dudes carrying baskets on their heads struts by. Super mysterious, but we'll get back to them later. Our MC trio then spots a huge sign that says free buffet with a catch. You win a prize if you come in first place, and by first place it means the last man or woman left standing. Their hungry stomachs cheer, but not so fast. There's a registration fee and they've run out of money.
If we had money, we wouldn't be here.
Well, I could take something worth that amount, I suppose.
Jin, being the responsible adult of the group, refuses to use his sword as leverage. Mugen, being the absolute opposite of responsible, snags both Jin's and his own sword and trades them to enter the competition. The buffet starts and it quickly turns into a gladiator match of stomachs. Jin and Mugen drop out early, clutching their poor bloated bellies, while the others are either busy passing out or vomiting. But some food freaks still persist. According to the commentary, it very well may be that what we're watching is the birth of human stomach evolution. In the end, it's down to Fu and a weird guy in fancy European clothes. Fu, determined to win, slaps a fly away from her face, which the judges immediately misinterpret as her surrendering.
Stupid fly!
It's over! She's given up!
She's disqualified. The European dude wins everything, including Jin and Mugen's swords. Later, the mysterious European winner finds the trio, and he introduces himself as Joji Titsing. He says that if they give him a personal tour of Edo, he'll return their swords. Fu wants to stick to their main quest, finding the samurai that smells of sunflowers, but Jin agrees to do it, possibly because he's still swordless and thereby feeling emotionally naked.
You be tour guide. I will give swords back as thanks.
You're out of luck. We don't know nothing about Edo.
We'll take you wherever you want.
While they're out sightseeing, a squad of samurai, who act suspiciously like immigration officers, are asking around about a suspiciously foreign-looking man. Uh-oh, I think I already know who they're looking for. At a restaurant, Joji, being generous, treats the gang to dinner. But mid-meal, the samurai squad storms in, ready to deport a foreigner. Mugen wants his sword back to throw hands with the officers just for the fun of it, but Joji isn't ready to give up. Then, an immigration officer spots them, and chaos erupts. Mugen and Jin give the agents a swordless beatdown before escaping. After they escape, Joji says they'll get their swords back after they watch a kabuki play with him. Fu is over it, but the boys go anyway. At the play, Joji steps away during intermission to talk to one of the actors who's dressed as a woman. Then we learn something big. Joji is gay, and also he's from Holland. Back home, Joji was treated like a criminal just for loving who he loves, but in Japan, he heard men like him could live freely, so he came down here.
Japan is the greatest, wonderful culture of manly love.
Soon enough, the immigration guys show up again. Joji panics, thinking they're coming after him for that reason, but nope, they just want him gone because he's a foreigner, not because he's gay. Still awful, but not that kind of awful. Joji hands Jin and Mugen their swords back, and they immediately try going all out against the agents in front of the entire theater audience. Then suddenly, those basket-carrying parade guys I mentioned earlier show up and reveal Joji's true identity. His real name is Isaac, the governor of the freaking East India Company. Basically, VIP status. Touch him, and it's international drama.
I am sure one day things will change and people here will not be so tight-assed.
Like anybody's gonna be able to relax their ass with you around.
I'm sorry. Mugen is probably the most non-filter character you'll ever meet. Anyway, after the dust settles, Fu has a quiet moment with Isaac, asking if he's ever heard of a samurai that smells of sunflowers. He doesn't know what that is, but asks for more clues. She shows him a small skull with a strange loop, asking if he knows anything about it. Seeing that, his face goes pale, and he tells her to not show it to anyone else. It's dangerous. But also, he gives her a clue. Go to Nagasaki. That's where the truth awaits. And with that, Isaac, vanishes back into international mystery, and our trio is back on the sunflower trip. The next episode, A Risky Racket, kicks off with our main trio doing exactly what they do best, being broke and desperate for food. So naturally, they decide to gamble. Thanks to a lucky break and Momo the squirrel pulling her weight for once, they actually win some cash. Things are looking up. Cut to the next day. They waltz into a restaurant and start living their best lives, ordering a feast. But just when Fu goes to pay, she realizes something horrifying. Their money has mysteriously vanished. Turns out it was probably the shady dude who bumped into her a few seconds earlier. Mugen and Jin chase after the guy like two samurai bloodhounds, but lose him in the crowd because, well, hungry swordsmen are no match for stealthy pickpockets. Meanwhile, this sneaky thief, who we learned is named Shinsuke, is out there living with his own crime side quest, stealing from more people and getting his hands on a mysterious packet of drugs. Still on the case, Mugen and Jin track a lead to some random house and break in like they own the place. There, they meet a sick woman who claims she doesn't know anything, but this is no random woman. She's Shinsuke's mom. Meanwhile, Shinsuke tries to sell the stolen drugs, but gets hustled himself by some guy demanding 70% of the profits.
Whatever you do with it will be illegal, you know. Besides, how would a rookie like you know where to go or have the funds for something like this, huh?
Sometimes crime really doesn't pay unless you're the guy with the most cards. Turns out, Shinsuke isn't doing all this for fun. He's stealing to buy medicine for his mom. He's a criminal with a heart of gold and apparently very poor negotiation skills. Fu overhears the whole thing and decides not to tell Mugen and Jin, probably because they'd either kill him or steal all his money. Next day, Fu goes full nosy neighbor and spies on the house. Shinsuke's mom catches her and assumes she's her son's girlfriend, and Fu awkwardly rolls with it. They chat and we get the emotional backstory. Deadbeat dad, struggling son, worried mom. Real soap opera energy. Later that night, Shinsuke visits the doctor. Good news, there's medicine that can cure his mom. Bad news, it costs more than he could ever steal in one lifetime. The next morning, Fu tracks him down to ask for her money back. But before things get real, a gang shows up. Yep, stealing drugs has consequences. Who knew? Fu screams like a horror movie extra, which distracts everyone just long enough for Shinsuke to beat them up and flee with her. The commotion also attracts the cops, unfortunately. Shinsuke feels cornered and turns the situation into a false hostage kidnapping, with Fu willingly playing along. Then, they hole up in a building where Fu turns into a makeshift nurse/therapist. She scolds him for his life choices, they bond over parental trauma, and for a minute, you forget he robbed her at the start of this episode.
What I need is money. So I tried to find a job, but none of the legitimate places would hire a stupid kid like me.
The bonding can only last so long, though, because soon enough the gangsters bust their way in. Just when things are about to get bloody, Mugen, sighting his kidnapped companion, crashes his way through the door and starts slicing and dicing. Shinsuke also uses the distraction to make a run for it with some help from Fu. Before escaping, Shinsuke vows to repay Fu for what she's done for him. But before he can escape successfully, the cops chase him into a corner. As Shinsuke pulls a blade to defend himself, the samurai version of a trigger-happy cop charges ahead and stabs him, killing him on the spot. Oh man, if you're a thug who starts bonding with Fu, better get ready to bite the dust. Fu sees what happens and sheds a tear. All that help now gone to waste in the blink of an eye. Damn that soundtrack. The next day, Fu visits Shin's mom, who's still waiting for him to come home. Fu doesn't have the heart to tell her the truth, but his mom seems to know what's up. And let's just say, it starts raining. And not because of the weather. Man, I really wanted a happy ending. But with that being said, our traveling companions hit the road again in search of the Sunflower Samurai. Episode 8, The Art Altercation, kicks off with a loud, rap-loving samurai named Nagamitsu, who makes his grand entrance by yelling out rhymes and challenging someone named Jin to a duel. At this point, it's still not clear which Jin he's referring to. Meanwhile, our Jin, Mugen, and Fu are starving as usual and stumble into a pawn shop hoping to trade anything for food. Unfortunately, Fu's junk and Mugen's sword aren't impressing the shopkeeper. But when the shopkeeper closely examines Jin's glasses, the man lights up like it's Christmas morning. Turns out, Jin's specs are rare and valuable. So, he pawns them off, reluctantly. And the trio finally gets to eat. Cut to the local restaurant, where they're enjoying their long-awaited meal. We see Nagamitsu again, who locks eyes with Fu and immediately falls head over sandals. He sends his henchmen to flirt for him, because nothing says romance like outsourcing.
That chick over there is one fine-looking hottie. You catching my drift?
But it flops. So Nagamitsu awkwardly steps in to flirt with Fu, only to get distracted and run off after hearing news from his henchmen that Jin has been spotted somewhere nearby.
It's from that customer over there.
Yo.
After that, Mugen and Jin spot a super sultry woman named Budokiba, who turns on the charm and invites them for drinks. Like moths to a flame, they're in. Fu, feeling abandoned, decides to go find and hang out with her new admirer, Nagamitsu. Now, Nagamitsu's big moment arrives. He dramatically challenges a glasses-wearing samurai on a bridge, huge crowd watching, Fu included. He pulls out his sword, gets immediately disarmed, but accidentally wins when his falling sheath bonks the guy on the head. It's pure slapstick glory, but hey, a win's a win. Back with the boys, Budokiba is pouring wine and drinks, turning the seduction dial up to 11. Jin sits quietly by, looking like the third wheel in this situation, right up until he passes out. Mugen drinks like a champ until he also loses consciousness. You can already imagine where this is going. Yeah, she's totally drugged them and takes all the money they'd gotten from the pawn shop. Then the scene cuts away to Fu and Nagamitsu getting to know each other.
If you want to know everything about me, keep reading. That's my autobiography there. Yeah.
Up on a grassy hill, Nagamitsu starts rambling to Fu about his grand plans to take over Edo Castle and become Japan's most famous samurai. He's been traveling around the country, beating swordsmen left and right, all to build his legend. His original goal was to defeat the legendary Enshiro Muraya, a guy who'd gone unbeaten in 1,000 duels. But when he arrived, Enshiro was already dead, killed by his own student. So now, Nagamitsu is set on taking out that student instead. Surprisingly, that student is Jin. Realizing this, Fu awkwardly changes the subject and makes a quick exit. Meanwhile, Mugen and Jin wake up the next morning in an alley, broke and betrayed. Fu finds them, and even though she's disappointed, she's not surprised. They now have to somehow raise money to retrieve Jin's spectacles. So, for some quick bucks, the gang stages a street act where Jin and Mugen slice fruits off of Fu's head with swords. Miraculously, no one loses an eye, and the crowd loves it. With fresh cash in hand, they head back to the pawn shop to reclaim Jin's glasses. But guess who's also at the pawn shop? Yup, Nagamitsu and his rap-muttering posse. Nagamitsu realizes Jin's identity, thanks to the retrieved glasses, and one of his crew members, Ogre, a fellow sword school student from Jin's alma mater, challenges Jin to a duel to avenge the slain sensei Enshiro Muraya.
Why did a great man like you betray our master?
I wasn't the one who betrayed him. The fact of the matter is the person who killed him was me.
Jin clearly dominates, but lets the guy walk away with a shred of dignity. What a gentleman. Just as things start getting serious again, a big dog named Luigi crashes the scene, followed by none other than the swindler Budokiba. Turns out she's Nagamitsu's fed-up wife, and she's done with his wandering samurai nonsense. She grabs him by the ear, figuratively, and drags him and their kids onto a boat. As the ship sails off into the sunset, Nagamitsu declares his next goal, finding more legendary samurai to battle. Because apparently, the guy's got dreams, and they must be followed, despite family objections. Although I'm still not sure why the boys didn't react in Budokiba's face after getting drugged and robbed. But anyway, the journey continues. The next episode is called Beatbox Bandits, and we're 30 years into the future. We get introduced to this old dude. His name is Yamane the Ogre, and he's a legendary checkpoint guard. He's busy reflecting on his last day before retirement after 30 long years of making sure migrants don't cross the Hakone border without ID. But he's not reminiscing about all the boring paperwork. No, he's focused on one insane day from over 30 years ago. A day so wild, he didn't even write it down in the official logs.
On that one day, everyone was allowed to come and go through here as they pleased, thieves and criminals alike.
We then return to the current timeline, where our wandering trio of 2 samurai and a former waitress are stuck at the Hakone border. They need to cross the checkpoint, but there's one little problem. They have 0 papers. Just as they start to panic, a sketchy guy shows up like, "Hey, wanna buy some totally real travel permits?" And of course, they go for it. To no one's surprise, the permits are fake. At the checkpoint, our gang gets busted instantly. Fu gets dragged off for a strip search, while Mugen and Jin get the full punch-in-the-face welcome package. The guy in charge of the checkpoint, Kinogasa, is a classic corrupt jerk with family connections, basically a nepotism ninja, and he's absolutely itching to find an excuse to execute somebody today. But Yamane, who actually runs security, steps in with a better idea. He whispers a deal into Kinogasa's ear. If Mugen can deliver a mysterious severed head to a secret location, they'll let them all go. But if he doesn't return by sunset, Fu and Jin will be executed. Mugen agrees, of course, but before taking off, he's told to watch out for some Tengu. You know, those mystical long-nosed forest goblins? So Mugen's out wandering the woods, and things get weird fast. First, he meets an overly enthusiastic jogger who seems very lost.
Who the hell are you, buddy?
I'm just out for a little jog today, trying to keep myself healthy.
Then, a bunch of creepy guys in Tengu masks show up and chase him through the woods. He loses them, but immediately falls into one of their traps. The masked weirdos turned out to be warrior priests. Yup, a whole gang of them, and they're planning a holy revolution to overthrow the Edo shogunate. They're led by their charismatic leader, Aohabu, who's got some big plans and some very, very special grass. They've been growing a whole field of it. So as Mugen gets tied up and offered as a sacrifice/punching bag to hype up the rebellion, Yamane, who's been tailing Mugen to ensure he doesn't escape from the Hakone border patrol, tries to sneak in for a secret rescue mission. Bad news is, he gets caught too. But the good news is, Yamane is no ordinary samurai. First, he flexes out of his bondage by breaking a few of his bones. Then, he takes Mugen's sandal and sets a fire to the cell, before drop-kicking a guard in the neck. Both men make it to the edge of the forest, only to be blocked by the warrior priests. Mugen jumps into full slash-first, ask-questions-never mode. The fire spreads, and guess what? All that special grass? Yeah, it burns as well. Suddenly, everyone's tripping. Visions, slow-mo twirling, giggles. These fearsome warrior priests are now floating in a cloud of good vibes and LSD. Back at the checkpoint, Fu and Jin are still tied to crosses, literally about to be executed. But the smoke from the forest rolls in, and boom, even the border guards start hallucinating. Nobody knows what's happening anymore. Criminals, guards, and civilians are dancing together. Like, what the hell is going on? And that day becomes the one legendary moment where nobody got stopped at the border. The next day, Jin and Fu escape and go looking for Mugen. They find him still in the woods, completely blitzed, hanging out with the now chill warrior priests like they're all at a very strange music festival. And we end where we started, with old man Yamane wondering if Mugen, wherever he might be, still remembers that day as clearly as he does. Knowing Mugen, he probably still reminisces about it all. The next episode is titled Lethal Lunacy, and it kicks off at night, because that's when all shady stuff happens in anime. We see two individuals who are about to face off. One is a samurai, and the other dude is still a mystery. As they charge forward, the mystery dude 1/KOs his opponent immediately, and the aftermath is not pretty.
Let's go!
When someone gets one-shotted like that, you just know the winner is going to be a problem for our main characters. We then cut to the next morning, and our favorite three musketeers are once again broke, hungry, and aimless. Just another Tuesday. Luckily, they run into a very generous priest who offers them free food and a place to crash in his monastery. The catch? They have to do lots of chores. As they start doing errands, Fu overhears some juicy gossip. There's a mysterious killer on the loose, and apparently, all of his victims are expert samurai who died bleeding out of basically every hole that exists in their bodies. No sword wounds or signs of physical contact, just internal bleeding and horror movie stuff. Oh, and there's a 10 Rio bounty on the guy. For context, that's enough money to buy food, gear, and possibly a small country. Okay, not really, but it's still a good amount for our dirt broke travelers. Fu reports back to the boys, but only Mugen shows any interest.
This guy's only selecting skilled samurai to kill.
Okay then. I'm going out for a bit.
Jin stays behind doing monk labor while Mugen heads off to hunt down the killer. We then cut to sunset, and on a bridge, a group of samurai confront the same mystery man we saw earlier in the episode. They demand a fight. He says no, refusing to deal with weaklings, but they keep insisting. So he shrugs, kills one effortlessly, and scares the rest of them away. Yeah, this man is not playing around. Mugen shows up just in time to find a trail of blood and thinks, yep, found the guy, but he doesn't go after him immediately. Back at the temple, Jin is chopping firewood when a flying log nearly takes the priest's head off. Except the priest casually catches it midair without even looking. Okay, what? Jin's sus meter is going bonkers now, because this guy's definitely not some ordinary priest. Later that night, Mugen's chilling in a bar having some sake, with the mystery man sitting next to him. Mugen's completely oblivious and starts sharing conspiracy theories about the killer case to the actual killer, who even shares his sake with him, like a freaking gentleman. They leave the bar together, and there's a bromance blossoming, until the mystery man starts telling a short but creepy tale about a mountain climber who turned into a demon. Mugen doesn't get what the story is about, but feels there's something really off about the guy. As they're about to part ways, Mugen sticks to his guts and suddenly goes, wait a second, you're the guy everyone's talking about, aren't you? They start fighting, and it's short but intense, and the killer slips away, leaving Mugen with cuts on his hands. Still, they agree to reschedule their match for the next full moon. Back at the monastery, the priest is chilling in a hot tub. Jin's been side-eyeing this guy all day and finally decides to attack him.
My apologies, but the speed of your movements leads me to believe that you're no ordinary priest.
The priest dodges it effortlessly, and Mugen shows up like, what did I miss? They all then notice cut marks on Mugen's hands. Turns out the priest's name is Zuiko, a retired swordmaster, and he knows exactly who the killer is. Because, wait for it, he trained the guy himself. Through a flashback, we learn that our killer used to go by the name Ukon, a top student at Zuiko's sword training dojo. Once upon a time, Ukon went on a trip overseas that turned into a shipwreck disaster. He washed up on the shores of somewhere in China and got scooped up by Shaolin monks. There, Ukon learned Hakei, a mystical martial art where you punch with chi energy and people explode on the inside. 10 years later, he comes back, now calling himself Sharyu, and instead of being enlightened, he's now terrifying as hell. During training, he murders another student for fun, gets expelled from the dojo, and spirals into full villain behavior.
What do you think the martial arts are for? They have but one purpose, which is to take the life of your opponent.
He tries joining other dojos, but they all blacklist him like he's cursed. Eventually, Shoryu starts killing swordmasters across the country to prove he's the greatest Hokage or something. He soon mastered the art of weaponized chi, meaning he could literally slice people up without touching them. No sword needed, just vibes and spiritual trauma. Back to the present, next day, something wild happens. Mugen gets serious. He's out here actually training ahead of his upcoming rematch, practicing moves and not being a chaotic gremlin for once. Fu is confused, and Jin explains that Mugen only acts like this when he thinks he might actually lose a fight. The night of the rematch finally arrives.
Don't forget, you said you'd help me find him.
One other thing. I shall be the one who gets to slay you.
Mugen walks out to the bridge, which is clearly the only fighting spot in town, and Shoryu is waiting, ready for round 2. Samurai Champloo doesn't drag on with its fights, thankfully, so we get a short but still pretty epic encounter. Sword clashes, energy blasts, kung fu flips, you name it. Eventually, they both lose their swords. Mugen's looking rough, barely standing, as Shoryu moves in for the final blow. But Mugen fights dirty. Just as Shoryu gets close, Mugen whips out a hidden blade and shanks him right in the chest. Shoryu drops dead, and somewhere Zuiko stares into the distance, dramatically sensing his former student's death like a true anime sensei. I guess the life lesson here is never underestimate the dude who fights like breakdancing is a combat style. The next episode, called Gamblers and Gallantry, opens with a heavy rainfall. And well, it rains throughout the entire episode. Fu, Mugen, and Jin are stuck in some random town, broke as ever, scrambling to find work. Fu, being the only one with a shred of responsibility, quickly lands a job. One day, Jin is wandering around the streets like a ghost with a katana. While brooding on a bridge, he runs into a woman who looks like she's 2 seconds away from jumping into the river below. Jin, with the emotional awareness of a wet paper bag, casually suggests where the water's deeper if she is thinking of jumping.
This canal is not as deep as it appears. If you'd like to drown yourself, it would be wise to choose another location.
She laughs and walks off like that wasn't incredibly dark, and Jin continues on his emotionally repressed journey to a food stand where he hears about a part-time gig. The food stand owner tells him to just man the grill while he's out. It's pouring, so the owner figures business will be dead for the rest of the day. If that's the case, why not just close the shop and call it a day then, NPC character? Anyway, Jim starts manning the food stand, and because life loves irony, the woman from the bridge shows up.
Oh my, aren't you the samurai from earlier?
Jin tries to serve her grilled eel and fails spectacularly, like he's getting clowned by slippery seafood. So the woman ends up hopping behind the stand and showing him how it's done, even sticking around to help when a sudden crowd shows up out of nowhere. After the eel chaos dies down, Jim tries to redeem himself by cooking her something properly. It's a plate of overcooked, burnt, pitch-black eel, but she doesn't mind. She eats it anyway, and then she drops a bombshell just before heading out. She's about to start working in a brothel to pay off her husband's gambling debt. Yeah, the Edo period wasn't the best time for women. Sheesh. The next morning, Jin finds the brothel and returns the umbrella that the woman left behind a day before, and the two then share a soft moment before she gets pulled away for work. They exchange names, she tells him that her name's Shino, and something starts to flicker under Jin's unusually quiet demeanor. Meanwhile, Mugen starts gambling on stag beetle fights to make money. Spoiler, his beetle is trash. He gets yelled at by Fu for quitting a perfectly decent bodyguard job, a job he abandoned for beetle tournaments instead.
You know we need the money!
He's up on the naggin'. I'll soon be making a shitload of cash with this bad boy.
Later, he drags Fu to a beetle match, and shockingly, his new beetle, whom he proudly names Rodriguez, actually wins. Fu is both amazed and horrified at this. Back with Jin, he visits Shino again. He tries to convince her to leave the brothel, but she's locked in because of the debt. Things take a turn when the brothel owner finds out that Jin is broke. The henchmen proceed to assault and rearrange his internal organs in the street, and after that, Jin drags himself home, beaten and bloodied, quietly asks Fu and Mugen for money, just enough to buy a woman's time, which raises a few eyebrows. Fu and Mugen immediately spiral into a hilarious debate about Jin's love life, with Mugen feeling glad that Jin's now confirmed to be straight. Fu, meanwhile, is wondering why Jin even needs another woman when she's available as a companion. Oh, Fu, that's not how the world works. Anyhow, now armed with beetle money and a purpose, Jin returns to the brothel. This time, cash in hand, the staff roll out the red carpet. He asks to see Shino, and the two spend the night in quiet intimacy, sharing thoughts, fears, and yes, eventually things get very not PG. The next morning, Jin tells her that there is a way out, a shelter she can escape to, but if she goes, they won't be able to see each other again.
Unfortunately, our fantasy time is over. The real world is out there waiting for us.
Before she can decide, Shino's husband shows up. This guy, who has done absolutely nothing but turn her into a now wants to beg for a share from her earnings. What a bastard! When she refuses, he starts assaulting her. Jin steps in and nearly crushes the man's windpipe, but stops just short at Shino's request. Later that night, Jin goes to see Shino again, despite Fu's mild objections. He repeats his offer: escape, shelter, freedom. This time, Shino opens up about how she really had been considering jumping from the bridge that day they met, but thanks to him, she's ready to live. She agrees to leave the brothel. They sneak out, but of course, nothing goes smoothly. The brothel owner catches wind of the jailbreak and sends his henchmen after them. Jin, with no weapons but full conviction, starts throwing hands anyway. Just when things start to get dicey, Mugen and Fu show up to throw down in classic chaotic fashion. As fists fly, Jin guides Shino to a small boat waiting by the river. Just as she's about to step in, her husband shows up again for one last pathetic plea. Shino, finally done playing the victim, throws a fistful of money in his face and turns away. She gets into the boat and Jin pushes her off, sending her downriver to safety.
Jean.
They don't even get to share a final hug, which is so damn unfair that I want to cry. Damn! The following episode is called The Disorder Diaries. This one's basically a recap episode thanks to Mugen stealing Fu's diary, and then getting Jin to read it to him cause he's illiterate. Although Fu spends most of the time roasting the guys in the diary, Fu recalls their emotionally messy encounter with Shinsuke, and how it reminded her of her late mother. She vows to one day write a letter to Shinsuke's mom and tell her what really happened during that whole incident. Towards the end, Fu admits that while her two travel companions are basically walking red flags, they've helped her get this far, and she's kind of grateful? It's a surprisingly sweet moment until Fu pulls a fast one, leaving a not-so-cordial message right at the end of the diary, almost like she knew the boys would snoop around her private journal.
Just kidding. I figured those two might try and get a peek at my diary without asking, so I decided to make all that stuff up.
Mugen reacts exactly how you'd expect. His scream is loud enough to wake Fu from her peaceful hot spring nap, and with that, the episode comes to a close. The next episode is called Misguided Miscreants. From deep within the forest, Mugen, Jin, and Fu make their way to the open sea. Fu's instantly in beach vacation mode, splashing around like a golden retriever. Mugen, however, spots a strange girl who stares at him like he's a ghost. She runs towards him, tears in her eyes, but things get cut short because Fu gets caught in a fishing net, and a random gang of thugs jumps out, ready to brawl. Mugen and Jin hold their own, but the fight screeches to a halt thanks to a surprise gunshot. Enter Mukuro, gunman, pirate boss, and a walking red flag. He and Mugen go way back. They used to commit crimes together as kids. Mukuro tries to pull Mugen into one last big mission, but Mugen wants nothing to do with him. Later, Koza, the girl from earlier and Mukuro's long-suffering little sister, gives Jin and Fu the backstory. She, Mukuro, and Mugen grew up on a cursed little island where criminals were dumped like expired sushi. So, their childhood was more Lord of the Flies than My Neighbor Totoro. Mugen, being the least terrible of the terrible people there, became Koza's favorite by default. Back to the present, Koza gives our gang directions to Nagasaki, but she's clearly torn up about Mugen leaving again.
Are you alright? I'm fine. I just thought that I might be able to be with Mugen again, just like the old days.
Then we see another flashback of Mugen standing at the edge of a cliff with hands tied behind his back, facing down a literal firing squad. This was probably the aftermath of a heist gone wrong, as Mukuro and Koza are watching from a nearby bush. Rather than catch some bullets, Mugen yeets himself off the cliff and into the sea in a dramatic dive for survival. In the present, Mukuro challenges Mugen to a bizarre horse riding contest that ends in both men jumping off a cliff with their horses. Mugen loses, and now he owes Mukuro a favor. He has to help with a government heist, because this group of MCs never says no to terrible life choices. Mugen checks in with Jin and Fu to let them know he's temporarily partnering with Mukuro to rob a government ship loaded with 60,000 Ryo. The job should be easy, since Mukuro has got an inside mole on the government ship. As Mugen gears up, Koza tries to have a heartfelt moment with him about the good old days. Except, Mugen either has amnesia or just doesn't care, because he gives her a shrug and walks away.
I want to run away. With you.
I'm the wrong guy for that job.
At first, the heist begins as planned. Mugen rams a boat into the target ship like a samurai wrecking ball. He climbs aboard expecting easy pickings, only to find the government crew alive and well when they should be out of commission. So now, Mugen's improvising, aka beating the hell out of everyone. Meanwhile, Koza figures out something's wrong and sprints to Jin and Fu for help. On the government ship, Mukuro shows up with a barrel of explosives. He tosses the barrel onto Mugen's boat, basically trying to kill him along with all of the other participants in the heist. Within seconds, the barrel explodes. From the shore, Koza, Fu, and Jin watch the fireball explosion light up the night sky. And our main character may have just been blown to smithereens. Oh. In the next episode, Misguided Miscreants Part 2, we pick up from where we left off. Mugen got played by his old pal Maruko, who lured him into a pirate heist and then tried to blow him to pieces with a barrel of dynamite. Now, we open with Mugen sinking gradually to the bottom of the ocean. As he drifts down, Mugen's brain starts playing the greatest hits montage of his time with Mukuro and Koza. Oh, and in case you thought Mukuro's betrayal last episode was a one-time thing, nope. In a flashback, Mugen also nearly got murdered by him during a sugar heist.
There's been a change in plans. We're leaving now.
But what about Mugen?
The man's consistency in betrayal is disturbingly evil. Back in the present, Koza's clearly had enough of her charming backstabbing brother and asks Jin for a favor. Kill Mukuro and finally be done with it. Meanwhile, Fu is searching the shore for a body when she bumps into a fisherman who casually mentions pulling up a corpse from the shore. It does turn out to be Mugen, who's fortunately not entirely dead. Whew. We always knew he was too stubborn to die. While Fu slaps some life back into Mugen, Mukuro is holed up in some secret hideout with his sketchy mole friend Shirin, casually chatting about how he's trying to hook Shirin with his little sister. Koza shows up at the hideout for what seems like a very weird date with Shirin. Once the door shuts behind her, Jin makes his dramatic entrance. He still doesn't know that Mugen's alive, by the way. Anyway, Jin grumbles to Mukuro that only he's allowed to kill Mugen, and so, to avenge his fallen rival/comrade, he wastes no time and gives Mukuro a bloody 2-strike send-off to the afterlife. But before dying, Mukuro laments that it seems both of them have been deceived. Jin is confused and goes to check on Koza, only to discover that she's pulled the old sneak out the back trick, making him realize that she may have been playing him the whole time. Betrayal really is the theme of the day. As Jin broods on the beach, he spots Mugen limping his way to finish his business with Mukuro.
Mukuro is dead. I killed him.
You son of a... That was for me to...
I was deceived.
Jin updates him on the situation. Mukuro's dead, and Koza might have been less of a victim and more of a manipulator. And just as Koza and Shirin finally make it to the stash spot where the 60,000 Ryo is hidden, who do they find standing in their way like the final boss of a revenge movie? Mugen. Still limping, still mad, and still very much done with everyone's nonsense. Shirin thinks this is the moment to charge at him and is quickly dispatched. And then, Mugen continues limping right past Koza like she doesn't even exist. She breaks down, begging him to kill her, but Mugen doesn't say a word. He just walks right off, leaving her alone with nothing but regret, a useless pile of gold, and a dead boyfriend. The next episode is called Bogus Booty. It kicks off with foggy mountains and a ninja being chased relentlessly by unknown figures. And before he's caught, he throws a small bag of Ryo into a nearby lake. The next day, Jin, Mugen, and Fu are at that same lake. Jin can't catch any fish, while Mugen and Fu cook theirs over a fire. Jin gets so frustrated that he jumps into the lake, maybe thinking he can fight a fish like a samurai. Instead, he finds the ninja's bag of money. Excited by their luck, the trio decides to celebrate with a big feast. After the feast, Jin and Mugen sneak off into a red light district, leaving Fu behind. Inside the district, our samurai MCs stumble into a brothel and immediately fall for a beautiful woman named Yatsuha Imano. Mugen, never one to turn down a good time, is first in line. He has no problem paying thanks to the money bag. Meanwhile, somewhere in the brothel, a secret meeting is going down. Remember that ninja from earlier who was being pursued? Turns out he's part of a whole government operation to spy on a guy named Ginsa Momochi, who runs a fake currency syndicate. Although the ninja has been beaten to an inch of his life, he still refuses to expose other moles who are working with him. Out of all possible moles, the syndicate's top suspect is Yatsuha, because that hot courtesan joined the brothel around the same time the spy ninja started working with the syndicate. As the meeting is going on, Yatsuha is eavesdropping from the next room. Mugen's right next to her, preparing for what can only be described as the most awkward seduction dance ever. Before Mugen can land a kiss, however, she quickly knocks him out cold with a vase. But Mugen has the recovery time of a cockroach. He wakes up soon after and blocks Yatsuha from escaping. As he goes in for another kiss, Yatsuha distracts him and kicks him right in the samurai jewels.
Hey! Look, there's a naked woman over there!
Huh?
It's very effective for about 10 seconds. Mugen gets back up, because of course he does, and now Yatsuha has no other option but to use her most powerful weapon, the promise of... It works like a charm. Mugen officially becomes her lapdog, and together they descend into the elevator shaft that goes straight down into the factory where the fake coins are manufactured. At the factory, Yatsuha manipulates Mugen into helping fight off Jinza and his goons, once again using suggestive promises as motivation.
If you take out all these guys, I promise I'll rock your world.
Forget about it. You keep saying that, but you never deliver nothing, huh? You're on.
Meanwhile, Jin, off doing his own solo thing, gets ambushed by members of the syndicate, but these fodders didn't stand a chance. He kills them all in one slice like it's no big deal. Back at the underground factory, things have turned into complete chaos. With his henchmen defeated, Ginza tries one last angry charge at Mugen, but ends up getting crushed by Yatsuha, and that marks the end of the fake money syndicate. The next morning, Yatsuha thanks Mugen for his service, but after he reminds her about his reward, she distracts him and knocks him out again. Jeez. With the help of the spy ninja from earlier, she drops Mugen's unconscious body off under the tree where Fu had been napping this entire time. As she leaves, Yatsuha reminisces on a promise she made to Mugen. She promised to marry him once their journeys are over. Whether that's a real vow or just one last distraction tactic, who knows? But given Mugen's overly submissive reaction to flirty woman, he'll probably be waiting for that broad. The following episode is called Lullabies of the Lost. Back on the trail in some unnamed location, our MCs hear a local legend about a monster that's been haunting the forest and murdering people. Bad as that sounds, our gang is more preoccupied with other matters. Other matters like, who the heck are they even looking for? Mugen and Fu start bickering about their actual mission to find the samurai who smells of sunflowers. Mugen, fed up with Fu's cryptic clues and holding back information, loses his temper.
Maybe you feel like telling us why you're so desperate to find this guy, when you don't even know for sure if he's alive or dead.
The guy's alive!
Huh?
Things get heated, feelings are hurt, doors are slammed, figuratively, and they all storm off in different directions like a dramatic boy band breakup. Jin, while going on his own path, immediately gets ambushed by a masked ninja. Meanwhile, Fu has her own misadventure. Her flying pet squirrel Momo straight up abandons her. Fu slips and ends up dangling off of a cliff. She tries to hang on, but Momo returns just in time to distract her into falling off entirely. Mugen, off doing his lone wolf routine, gets attacked by a random dude with a crossbow. After dodging a storm of arrows, Mugen is accused by his attacker of being a member of the Matsume clan, some clan we haven't heard of yet. Mugen gives a vague answer and the mystery man leaves without explanation, leaving Mugen confused as to why he was attacked and falsely accused in the first place. Back to Jin. He's still duking it out with his masked attacker, who turns out to be a dude named Yukimaru, a former fellow student at the dojo they both trained at. He's also here to avenge their old master Enshiro.
All everyone talks about is you. I'm sick of it.
You wish to make a name for yourself?
Exactly what you did, right?
You know, the one Jin famously killed. Low-key though, Yukimaru wants to build his rep by taking down Jin, not necessarily because he cared much for the dead sensei. After learning of his actual motivation, Jin doesn't see the point in this fight anymore and has completely lost interest. To add insult to injury, Jin calls Yukimaru a weakling and is so done with this whole confrontation, he literally dives off a cliff just to avoid further interaction. Wow. And speaking of falling, Fu has fallen off another cliff and is now slowly drowning in the river when she has the most dramatic fever dream imaginable. In one vision, she's a child in a sunflower field, watching a mysterious man walk away. That mysterious man is who she's been searching for. In another vision, she's all grown up, but suddenly all the sunflowers around her start dying. She wakes up next to a fire, rescued by the crossbow guy, whose name is Okuru. She tries to leave, but her legs are injured, so he patches her up with some forest herbs. Then, they start to talk about their respective travels and other small talk, with Fu expressing her dread for the thought of drowning.
But for some reason, I always hated the thought of drowning. I want my corpse to be beautiful.
Okuru opens up about his tragic backstory, because everyone in this show has one. His whole village was wiped out by a plague called the Roaming God, which killed his wife and newborn child. Sheesh. As for Mugen, he's now being attacked by police officers from the Matsume clan who have mistaken him for Okuru. We continue in the next episode, called Lullabies of the Lost Verse 2. The fight between Mugen and the Matsume officers end with Mugen holding one of them hostage to get more information about this Okuru dude. The officer explains that Okuru is wanted for allegedly torching an entire village. killing a bunch of clan members, and, oh yeah, murdering his own wife and child. Mugen lets the officer go, but not before giving him a warning for his fellow clansmen to stay out of his way and let him handle this psychotic monster. Meanwhile, Fu is still hanging out with Okaru in a cozy little cave. She wants to tag along with him because trauma bonding is her favorite hobby. But Okaru kindly declines, citing his wanted man status. After she falls asleep, he leaves behind some fish. Nice guy, honestly, and dips out into the night. Back in the forest, Mugen finally finds Okaru, who's just casually sitting and strumming a musical instrument. Mugen recognizes the song, and they share a weirdly tender moment before Okaru tells him what really happened to his village. In the flashback, we see Okaru's village in terrible ruins, with his wife and child crawling out of a burning house in a scene that emotionally dropkicks your soul. But at some point, because this is Samurai Champloo, both Mugen and Okaru start fighting. You can't have a heartfelt moment without someone pulling a sword. The fight is chaotic, arrows are flying, and eventually Okaru runs out of bolts and switches to sword mode. Meanwhile, Fu is out in the forest absolutely freaking out over what she assumes is an ogre or a demon stalking her. Spoiler, it's just Yukimaru, Jin's angsty ex-classmate with a deadly inferiority complex. He ambushes Jin for round 2 of their duel while monologuing about death and rebirth and blah blah blah. And the two men resume sword fighting. After a brief exchange, Jin finally stabs Yukimaru through the chest. With his dying breath, Yukimaru admits that all he ever wanted was to be like Jin. Of course, I knew he was just a jealous loser. Anyway, just as Fu and Jin are laying Yukimaru to rest, they hear chaos off in the distance. Yup, it's Mugen and Okaru getting ambushed by the Matsume again. The two are hiding behind a rock, and Okaru is debating whether to keep fighting or to surrender peacefully. In the end, Okaru, fed up with running, decides to face the music alone. In a dramatic monologue, he explains that yes, there was a disease in his village, but instead of helping, a group of Matsume officials decided to go full arsonist on the villagers, setting the place on fire to prevent the spread of COVID or whatever disease it was. Okaru, in a reasonable act of anger, killed them all and has been on the run ever since. The Matsume's response to this monologue is to shoot flaming arrows into the fugitive. Okaru gets hit multiple times, but still manages to grab one of the arrows and take out a guy like a total Chad. Mugen is furious, simply because he didn't get to finish his fight with Okaru, and Jin joins in to help clear out the attackers. Now, severely wounded and on actual freaking fire, Okaru stumbles to the edge of a cliff. He's real quiet, and doesn't look like he's about to die anytime soon, which is not normal at all. Even Mugen is in complete awe. Everyone watches as the burning man jumps off the cliff, disappearing into the mist below. What a legend. The next day, the gang is back on the road, but remember they had that big argument earlier in the episode, so now everyone's quiet and someone's gotta break the ice. Mugen finally asks Fu again what her deal is with the mysterious Sunflower Samurai.
Why don't you let us in on the real reason you're looking for the Sunflower Samurai? Is it revenge?
That's right.
And this time, she gives an actual answer. She wants to avenge her late mother. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. In the next episode, called War of the Words, we kick things off with a narrator telling us about the birth of graffiti and fashion in feudal Japan. Yeah, apparently samurai drip was a thing. Our trio, Mugen, Fu, and Jin, are just trying to enjoy some lunch. But Fu notices that Mugen's copying everyone's food orders like he's that one friend who never looks at the menu. But you see, there's a very important reason behind that. Actually, Mugen is totally, helplessly illiterate. He knows the kanji for no, which, frankly, is the most on-brand thing ever, but surprisingly, some guy ends up roasting Mugen so hard he's forced to learn how to read and write.
Oh! All answers are correct!
Hell yeah.
And he goes on to publish writings using graffiti. So the good news is, Mugen is now literate. Bad news is, he's become a graffiti terrorist. Fu and Jin wake up one morning to find all their stuff tagged with graffiti. They storm out to find Mugen proudly painting his infinity symbol on a wall. Turns out, that's how he writes his name now. A completely random symbol, which is kinda badass if you ask me. The next episode is called Unholy Union, and it starts off with Fu chilling in a cabin, minding her own business, when suddenly a girl bursts in asking for help. She's being chased by 2 thugs and needs a place to hide. Fu lets her in. The bad guys snoop around a bit, don't find anything, and leave. For now. Somewhere else, Mugen and Jin come across a super long line of people, all waiting for something. Mugen spots a picture of Jesus being crucified and is told to step on it to prove he's not a Christian. Mugen, who probably doesn't even believe in God, refuses because he doesn't like being told what to do.
Step on it and be through.
Nah, I ain't gonna do it.
Then don't step on it.
Well, now that you told me not to do it, I do want to do it.
So now, he and Jin are surrounded by guards. But before things get messy, here comes a dramatic priest with a gun, Xavier III, who claims to be the grandson of the Saint Francis Xavier. He fires a few shots into the air, scaring everyone off, and rides away. Back at the cabin, Fu gets to know the girl, whose name is Yuri. Yuri takes a look at Fu's creepy little skull keychain and asks her to peep the tiny Christian cross hidden in its eye. Yuri says it came from Yakuza Island, a safe haven for Christian refugees. Oh, and she drops a bomb. She's heard of a samurai who smells like sunflowers, and his name is Saizo Kasumi. Finally, a clue. But before they can trade any more juicy details, the two thugs from earlier bust in, knock Fu out cold, and kidnap Yuri. Mugen and Jin return to find Fu unconscious, and once she wakes up and fills them in, they head off to find Yuri. They arrive at a quiet little village where a super suspicious guy denies seeing any young women being chased, and then immediately invites them to stay the night. Totally normal behavior. That night, Fu wakes up and sees a crowd of people walking in a zombie-like line into a cave. Because our former waitress has zero survival instincts, she follows them. Inside the cave, she finds Xavier III giving a dramatic church service. But instead of spiritual guidance, he's preaching the gospel of gun making. Okay, this series is way ahead of its time. This is some post-Second Amendment type stuff right here. So Xavier's turning these desperate people into weapon factories. As that's happening, Fu gets caught by the same thugs from earlier. Inside the cave, Yuri confronts Xavier for turning religion into a business. But he doesn't care about that. Instead, he wants Yuri to marry him, whether she likes it or not.
Well, come on now. Isn't it in moments like this you are supposed to turn the other cheek?
What a jackass. She says absolutely not, so he throws her in a jail cell, right next to Fu. Mugen is woken by Momo the squirrel carrying a note from Fu asking to be rescued. Mugen and Jin track down the shady gun dealers and start getting the full picture. In jail, Yuri opens up to Fu about her past. She and her dad were Christian refugees on Yakuza Island, and one of the people hiding there was Saizo Kasumi, aka Mr. Sunflower Samurai himself. But the island was attacked and burned to the ground, and no one knows what happened to Saizo. Just when Xavier tries to force the wedding, Mugen and Jin bust in like action movie heroes, and Xavier freaks out, starts shooting everywhere, and accidentally knocks a giant cross down on himself. His beard and nose fall off, and we find out that Xavier III is not even European. He's just some random Japanese guy doing a cosplay. Xavier tries to get one last shot in, but his gun literally explodes in his face, and that's the end of it. The next morning, our trio says goodbye to Yuri, who's finally free. As they're walking away, Fu casually drops the biggest bomb yet. Oh yeah, Saizo Kasumi, the samurai who smells of sunflowers, he's my dad. Like, what? That's actually crazy. The next episode is called Elegy of Entrapment. Our traveling misfits duck into the nearest restaurant to avoid the rain, and also to eat something that isn't foraged or stolen. As they're enjoying their food, a woman begins playing a hauntingly beautiful tune on a shamisen. She's blind, graceful, and completely stealing the spotlight. Fu, being the resident extrovert, tries to make friends with the shamisen player, who introduces herself as Sarah, and she tells Fu that she's headed to a place called Hyuga. She offers to cover the gang's food and lodging if they'll escort her, an offer they can't refuse. One day, Jin gets curious and asks about the charm on her shamisen. Sarah gets a little emotional and tells him that she has a son out there somewhere, but she gave him up because she believed a blind woman couldn't raise a child properly.
I've been wanting to ask you about that charm too.
You've a child then, I take it.
Is the kid dead?
Mugen! Not at all.
Afterward, Sarah and Fu share some girl talk. Sarah asks what Mugen is like, probably trying to complete the mental image of the shirtless weirdo who invaded their bath earlier, but Fu brushes it off. Then things get deep. Sarah starts poking around emotionally, wondering if Fu might have feelings for one of her two samurai pals. The next day, Sarah tells the gang she needs a favor. She wants help finding her son, but there's a twist. She only wants one of the boys to come with her. Fu is not happy about this. She storms off and ends up on a bridge, trying to convince Jin and herself that she's totally 100% fine. Meanwhile, in the middle of a colorful festival, Sarah gets pulled aside by a creepy masked figure who reminds her of something, let's just say dark and ominous. Eventually, the whole group reaches a fork in the road. Sarah and Jin go one way, Mugen and Fu go the other. As soon as Jin walks off, Fu completely breaks down, sobbing while Mugen stands there looking confused, annoyed, and just a tiny bit concerned. But wait, it gets crazier. The same night, while Jin is performing escort duties and minding his own business, Sarah ambushes him with a sword.
Who was it that hired you?
Someone that you and your friends are no match for.
Now we know she's not just a lovely blind musician. She's an assassin. And her target? Jin and his crew. They fight on a misty bridge under the moonlight, and somehow she's holding her own against a guy who's trained in a top-tier dojo. Why do they always fight on a bridge under the moonlight? The next episode is titled Elegy of Entrapment Verse 2. Jin and Sarah are in the middle of an intense fight, and we pick up right where we left off. Sarah definitely isn't here to play. Not after she just slices Jin's leg like it's sashimi. In a desperate move, Jin pulls a classic maneuver and cuts the entire bridge in half, sending both of them tumbling into the lake below. As for Mugen and Fu, they're just casually walking along gossiping about Jin when they overhear a bunch of villagers talking about a collapsed bridge. Uh-oh. They tag along and eventually find Sarah, battered but alive on the riverbank. They take Sarah back to a cabin and Fu tends to her wounds because, despite everything, Fu is a sweetheart and has absolutely no idea who she's dealing with. Fu heads out to search for Jin, leaving Mugen alone with the world's most suspicious blind lady. And sure enough, he casually throws shade about knowing her secret. Sarah doesn't take that well and challenges him to a duel by the river. The rain's coming down, the mood is tense, and Sarah is wrecking Mugen. She stabs, slices, and just totally dominates him. Fu tumbles onto the scene mid-battle and freaks out upon seeing that Mugen is losing badly. As Sarah is about to land the killing blow, Fu dives on top of him and pleads for his life. Sarah listens and decides to walk away. We then cut to Jin, alive but barely, waking up in a random cabin which looks like a bad Airbnb. He's being taken care of by a quirky, slightly mysterious man who gives him an empty bowl to test his strength. The logic being that if he's strong enough to be annoyed by the empty bowl, he's strong enough to live.
I can't believe you fell for that.
Eventually, Jin hauls himself up and finds his new pal fishing by the river. The guy drops some deep metaphor about flowing with the current to catch fish, and Jin somehow connects this metaphor with fighting Sarah. He later reunites with Mugen and Fu, passing on his new go-with-the-flow wisdom and casually suggests that maybe Sarah was an assassin sent to stop them from reaching Nagasaki. Meanwhile, Sarah is off brooding in the woods, and Mr. Creepy Masked Guy shows up again to remind her that if she doesn't finish the job, her son dies. She's clearly having second thoughts, but still feels trapped in her mission. That night, Mugen sneaks out and goes looking for Sarah for a rematch. But this fight's different. Mugen has learned his lesson. He remembers Jin's advice about going with the flow, and uses the rain and terrain to his advantage. He gets one good strike in, and shockingly, Sarah pulls back right before landing her final blow. She lets herself get hit, and as she lays dying, she confesses that she knew deep down her son was probably already gone. She let herself be manipulated, thinking she still had something to fight for. Her last words are heavy, emotional, and full of regret. Then she dies right there, quietly and with dignity. Mugen, in a rare moment of emotional honesty, throws her blade into the river in frustration. Not just at her death, but at the whole mess of it. The following episode is called Cosmic Collisions, and we're about to be introduced to something really freaky. Our three MCs are on their way to Nagasaki, when suddenly, the ground under them collapses, and the whole gang falls into a deep hole. They find themselves in a cave, and soon enough they run into two weird strangers. Mugen thinks that they're bad news and slices off one of their arms. The strangers run off in fear. While trying to find a way out of the cave, our trio discovers a huge excavation site. They see the two strangers from earlier doing some hard labor. Their names are Sabini and Upa. Mugen apologizes and throws the sliced off arm back at them. Then a third man playing a musical instrument shows up. His name is Shige, and he claims he's a descendant of the ancient Heike clan. He tells them he's looking for the Heike clan's lost treasure. The gang agrees to stay and work, but have no real food to eat aside from wasabi sticks. At some point, Sabini and Upa start talking about the Heike and Genji War like it's happening right now, even though that was 500 years ago.
But when we finally get to lay our hands on that treasure, it'll make the 5 years we spent in this hole worth it, because we'll finally knock that corrupt bastard Genji off his throne.
Genji?
Fu realizes something is wrong. Later, she sees a worker's arm fall off and becomes even more suspicious. Meanwhile, the guys look through Shige's family scroll and find out it's fake. He's not really a Heike descendant at all. Fu then finds Shige in a graveyard, and he does something wild. He summons literal zombies. Holy moly. Turns out even Shige is a zombie too, and he's been using an undead army to search for the treasure. Fu starts to scream, drawing Shige and the zombies' attention. She runs back to warn Mugen and Jin, but it's too late. Zombies are everywhere. Mugen tries to fight them off, but since they're already dead, it's not effective at all. Fu, meanwhile, tries to talk sense into Shige and remind them that they're living in the Edo period, not the past. But he doesn't listen. Jin shows up and explains that Shige's scroll is fake, and he's been chasing a lie this whole time. Even the zombies stop and turn on Shige when they realize they've been tricked. Shige, now facing rebellion, plays his musical instrument one last time. Just then, a comet crashes into the site, blowing up everything in a huge mushroom-shaped explosion.
Look! It's a mushroom!
Now where have we seen a mushroom-shaped explosion before? The next episode is called Baseball Blue. Fu, Jin, and Mugen are chilling at a restaurant doing some light map checking and realizing that they're this close to reaching Yakutsuki Islands where the Sunflower Samurai is allegedly staying. Spirits are high, stomachs are rumbling, and the food arrives. After the last bite disappears, it's time to face the check. Mugen, of course, drops his financial master plan, Dine and Dash, and he makes a break for it. But karma arrives in the form of a baseball straight to the skull. The mystery pitcher? A guy named Kagemaru, who promptly captures the whole crew and ropes them into a very unexpected mission, playing baseball to save Japan from aggressive American imperialist businessmen. Let me give you some backstory. An American trade company rolled into town, eager to strong-arm their way into doing business. But Japan's like, no thanks, we love isolationism.
We did not come all this way just to make a request. This is an order.
Kagemaru challenges the Americans to a baseball game to settle things, but his original team bailed faster than a Tinder date. So he turns to our heroes for help, and surprisingly, Mugen's all in. The man just really loves competition. Kagemaru then trains our gang in the ancient art of knockoff samurai baseball overnight. Meanwhile, our familiar narrator and government agent Manzu tries to infiltrate the American ship dressed as a bootleg Uncle Sam. It goes just about as well as you'd expect.
Who are you? Oh, I'm an American, Yankee Doodle. Shut up!
Game day arrives, and Team Japan features Kagemaru, Jin, Mugen, Fu, a frail old man who looks like he's about to croak any moment now, Momo the flying squirrel, and an adorable dog who did not sign up for this. They actually start okay. Kagemaru and Jin hold their own, but then Mugen gets himself out for running the bases too aggressively. At some point, the old man actually dies before he even gets the chance to play. Desperate for players, Kagemaru drags Manzu in from the sidelines. The game keeps going, and the Americans start playing dirty. We're talking sabotage, injuries, and even death. Jeez. Jin, ever the graceful swordsman, turns into a graceful baseball ninja, avoiding attacks while sprinting towards a game-saving home run, until he's sabotaged by a hidden trap. Then Kagemaru takes the mound. On his second pitch, disaster strikes. The American batter's bat explodes mid-swing and turns into a flying shrapnel, impaling Kagemaru. Yeah, he actually dies. From baseball. Now, it's all on Mugen to save the motherland. And if anyone's built for chaotic baseball warfare, it's him.
What in the world is he doing? What the hell? That's a ball!
He starts throwing pitches with the speed of a hurricane and the spite of someone who just got the check at an overpriced sushi bar. One by one, the Americans fall. The final showdown comes down to Mugen and the last batter. Both swing, both get hit, but somehow Mugen powers through it. The Americans lose the match and sail back across the sea. Game over. Japan wins and baseball diplomacy is deemed a success. The next episode is called Evanescent Encounter Part 1. The episode kicks off with a fancy pants samurai named Kariya Kagetoki getting recruited by a shogunate counselor. The mission? Track down and stop Mugen, Jin, and Fu before they can reach Saizo Kasumi, the elusive samurai who smells like sunflowers. Apparently, Saizo had led a Christian rebellion against the shogunate, and if our MCs meet up with him, the government fears that it may throw a wrench into the shogunate's post-rebellion cleanup. Kariya hears that the trio managed to take out Sarah, the blind assassin from earlier, and that's all the motivation he needs to accept the job. That night, the gang sits around a campfire having a very emotionally loaded check-in. They've made it past Nagasaki, and the Yakutsuki Islands are just around the corner. Fu starts feeling all kinds of feelings because once they find Saizo, the adventure's over.
What's up with her? She's sentimental. She's what kind of mental?
I suspect her emotions are getting the best of her right now.
She suggests they all spill some personal secrets while they still can. Mugen responds with a typical Mugen story involving a random guy he once killed because he didn't like the way he talked. Jin goes deeper, talking about being raised in a strict dojo as an orphan, training all day, and eventually killing his own master. And Fu opens up about how her dad left when she was little, her mom died, and this whole journey has been about confronting the man who abandoned her. Later, Fu tells Jin she doesn't know what she'll do after this is all over, and ends up crying into his chest because saying goodbye is pretty hard. The next morning, things take a sharp turn from tender to terrifying. A group of 3 bloodthirsty assassins, Umanosuke, Denkibu, and Tube, arrive at the camp. They're tracking the trio. Meanwhile, Mugen, Jin, and Fu make it to a seaside town and grab some food while figuring out how to get to the islands. When Fu asks the guys to grab her a souvenir, they head off, only to discover a note from her saying goodbye and thanking them for the journey.
It's been too hard to say goodbye, so I'm going the rest of the way alone.
Huh?
She suddenly decided to go alone to confront her father. Just before boarding the boat, she unknowingly runs into Kariya himself, not realizing who he is. Once Fu reaches the island, things get weird fast. The villagers scatter in fear at the sight of her like she's carrying the plague. Eventually, one kind woman gives her a lead and tells her where she can find Saizo, just north of the village. Fu heads out, determined. Meanwhile, Jin and Mugen are hanging out near the ocean, when Kariya approaches them with some ominous updates.
They've let her run free this whole time, so they're able to discover Kasumi's whereabouts.
He informs them that Saizo is considered a religious traitor and high-value target because of his ties to the Shimabara Rebellion, which was a Christian religious uprising. The shogunate has been using Fu to draw him out this whole time. With that bombshell dropped, Kariya challenges the guys to a duel. Back on the island, Fu makes her way through a huge field of sunflowers, getting closer and closer to her father. But before she can reach him, she runs into the 3 assassins. As Umanosuke charges at her with his weapon drawn, the episode comes to an abrupt end. The next episode is called Evanescent Encounter Part 2. Mugen goes all in on Kariya Kagetoki, throwing his wild, unpredictable moves at him like he's breakdancing with a sword. Unfortunately, Kariya isn't impressed. In fact, he handles Mugen like a seasoned pro, counters every attack with ease, and launches Mugen straight into the ocean like he's swatting a fly. With Mugen out of the picture, temporarily, Kariya turns to Jin, clearly interested in testing the guy who killed his own master and Shiro Mariah. Jin's visibly shaken that this stranger knows about that dark chapter in his life, but Kariya doesn't give him time to process. He jumps right into battle. Mugen eventually crawls back from the ocean to rejoin the fight, but the reunion is cut short by the arrival of Denkibu, the blonde assassin from the previous episode. Denkibu interrupts the samurai throwdown to deliver a threat. Fu's been kidnapped, and if our boys want her to stay unharmed, they'd better meet Denkibu at the church on the nearby island. After a brief argument, Mugen agrees to head to the island while Jin stays behind to finish things with Kariya. While the two face off again, Jin pieces together who Kariya really is. Years ago, Kariya wanted to turn Jin's dojo into a secret assassin factory. Jin's master actually considered it and even asked Jin what he thought. Jin said absolutely not. Kariya didn't like that, so he ordered the master to kill Jin in his sleep. That backfired when Jin defended himself and killed his master instead, something that's haunted him ever since. Before round 2 officially kicks off, Jin and Kariya have a short heart-to-heart about how out of place they both feel in this changing world. They're 2 swordsmen stuck in the past, unsure if there's a place left for guys like them. Then, without much fanfare, they start fighting again. Kariya quickly takes the upper hand, but Jin pulls off a desperate final move. The two lunge at each other. There's a splash of blood, and then nothing. We don't know who made it out alive. Meanwhile, Mugen's boat ride isn't exactly peaceful. Denkibu decides he's tired of waiting and attacks mid-journey. The two fight in the cramped quarters of the boat, slashing and grappling until they both fall into the water. There, Mugen finally gets the upper hand and stabs Denkibu through the chest. Mugen eventually reaches the island and heads towards the rundown church, where he finds Fu being beaten by Umanosuke, the chain-sickle assassin with the eye patch and a serious vendetta. Mugen doesn't recognize him, so Umanosuke fills him in. Turns out, he, Denkibu, and their older brother Tubei were guards on that sugar shipment Mugen hijacked with Mukuro way back in the past. That disaster left the brothers maimed and disgraced, and they've been chasing revenge ever since. Umanosuke offers a deal. Surrender your sword, and Fu goes free. Mugen agrees, tossing his sword to the ground and telling Fu to run.
I can't leave you.
Don't give me that crap. Listen to me. I'm gonna be pissed off if we came all this way for nothing. Get lost.
She takes off to find her father while Mugen stays behind to deal with Umanosuke. It's a brutal fight, and Mugen takes a few hits that look seriously bad, but he keeps going. Fu, meanwhile, reaches the final destination, a quiet house hidden beyond the chaos. But just as she gets there, Kariya arrives by boat. He's bloodied, but alive, the not-so-subtle implication being that Jin didn't make it. The final episode is titled Evanescent Encounter Part 3. Fu finally makes it to the mysterious house of the elusive samurai who smells of sunflowers. And outside, she meets a tiny old man. He tries to shoo her away, but Fu is not here for vague warnings. She's ready to face the man who walked out on her and her mom like the classic deadbeat dad. The old guy heads into a shed and chats with the man himself. Yeah, Saizo is here, looking like he's 2 coughs away from the grave. After hearing Fu's at the door, he allows her to come in. She finally gets her chance to confront him, and it's heartbreaking. She tearfully lays out her trauma resume, abandonment, grief, poverty, but in the end, she can't bring herself to hurt a dying man. He's already basically a ghost with a pulse. Fu leaves in tears, disappointed and emotionally drained. As the old man tries to comfort her, Kariya Kaketogi strolls up like death in slow motion. He heads straight for Saizo, who's too sick to resist and too tired to care. With one last whisper to Fu, asking for forgiveness and revealing he never stopped thinking about her and her mother, Kariya ends Saizo with a clean kill.
Fu, please forgive me.
Kariya then expresses that he has the shogunate's orders to kill both Saizo and members of his family. Fu runs away, but this is a cliffhanger in the most literal sense. She runs straight to the edge of a cliff and finds herself cornered. But just when Kariya's about to finish the job, Jin returns from the dead, or at least from off-screen recovery, and the rematch begins. This time, Jin plays it smart. He takes a page from his master's secret playbook, intentionally taking a hit just to land a fatal blow, and Kariya's finally down for good. Meanwhile, Mugen's not having a great day either. Umanosuke's lecturing him about suffering and vengeance, and he's just yawning at the face of it. Mugen manages to stab him with a hidden blade and snatch back his sword. And then, it's game on. The fight goes full bonkers, walls collapse, everything is exploding, and Umanosuke is going feral with his sickle. Mugen ends it in peak Mugen fashion. He tosses his sword, body checks the guy like a linebacker, and finishes him with his own weapon. Just when you think it's over, Tubei, the final brother, rolls up in his wheelchair with a musket and a suitcase full of dynamite. He shoots Mugen and tries to blow him sky high. The explosion rocks the island and catches Fu and Jin's attention. The dust settles, and somehow, Mugen survived the blast and he limps back into view just in time for a very short final duel with Jin. They did promise to fight after Fu meets her sunflower samurai. Their swords clash and promptly break in half. These two are so exhausted that they both pass out immediately. So much for that rematch. A week later, they wake up in Saizo's shed, looking like they went 10 rounds against a hurricane. The old man explains that Saizo didn't abandon Fu and her mother out of selfishness. He did it to protect them from the shogunate, who had him marked as a traitor. It was a sad, noble sacrifice. After some final bonding over a warm meal, the trio heads out for the last time. Fu says her tearful goodbyes and drops one last twist before they part. Remember that coin flip that decided whether Mugen and Jin would fight back in episode 1? It landed on heads, not tails. She lied, and just like that, they walk off in different directions, unsure if they'll ever meet again.
Later, guys. See you around.
No music, no fireworks, just a quiet goodbye between 3 unlikely friends who survived an insane journey together. And this is how Samurai Champloo ends. Remember that cliche about journey being more important than the destination? Yeah, I'll miss seeing these 3 vagabonds together. Well, up until next time then, have a good day, and as usual, thanks for watching.